Welcome to DeepThink Lab's basic guide to an early game sorting system using thermal expansion item ducts. I am Zammy7189 and I will be showing you how to build a basic sorting system. There are only 3 items that you'll need besides the storage chests to make this storage system: an item duct, a crescent hammer, and pneumatic servos. To make an item duct you will need 2 tin and 1 lead ingot. This gives you 6 item ducts. The second item that you will need is a crescent hammer. You will need 3 iron ingots and 1 tin ingot. The crescent hammer allows you to change the inputs and outputs as well as easily break the item ducts. The final part is the pneumatic servo. It requires 2 glass blocks, 2 iron ingots, and 1 redstone dust. The pneumatic servo allows you even greater control over your storage system's operation. Alright, with all that covered, let's dive into it. First, we will place a couple of chests. One of these will serve as a chest where we will dump all of our items that are going to be sorted, and the other will serve as a destination chest. Next, we will connect the 2 chests with the length of item ducts. Notice the connection where the chest and the item ducts meet. By default, the interface between the 2 is an input. See how the blue arrow points into the chest? We will need to change this for the chest where we're going to put all the items to be sorted. We will do that using the crescent hammer. Just right-click the interface with the crescent hammer and you will see it change to a red arrow that points out. This means that items can now be pulled from the chest. Notice that none of the items that have been placed in the chest are being pulled out. That is because by default a redstone signal is required in order for items to be removed from the chest. I can place a lever that will allow me to turn the import on and off by applying a redstone signal. Notice that when I flip the lever, the red changes from a dark to bright red. This bright red means that the item duct is now actively pulling items from the chest, as you can see here. It does take some time for the items to travel down the item duct, but eventually they will get there. There are upgraded versions of the item ducts that will move the items faster, but I won't be covering those today. Now let's upgrade the system with those pneumatic servos. To install a servo, just equip it, then right-click the interface. You will see a message that the servo has been installed. If later you break the item duct that has the servo, you will get the servo back, so there's no risk of loss. To configure the servo, you will need to right-click it with an empty hand. This will pull up the configuration interface. On the left-hand side, you can adjust the number of items that will be pulled. For this sorting system, you will want to set it to 64, a full stack. On the right-hand side, there are 4 options. The first one allows you to set either a black or white list. A black list will process any item in the chest, with the exception of those items that are shown in a 3x3 grid. A white list is just the opposite. It will only process those items that are shown in the 3x3 grid. The other 3 buttons allow for even greater configuration of your system, but I'm not going to be covering those. For the first chest, the one where we will be placing all of the stuff, leave it set to a black list and don't put any items on the grid. This means that it will pull everything from the chest. The only other item that we will need to configure here is the redstone control. For this we will set it to ignored, so it will always be active. You can see that it's already starting to pull items out and move them to our first chest. Now that we have the basic mechanics out of the way, let's expand our system to include another chest. In reality, you can have as many chests as you need. For this example, I'm going to keep it simple. Up to this point, we don't really have a sorting system. It's just something that'll move items from one place to another. To make it a sorting system, we'll add a servo to each of the interfaces on the chests, and then go in and configure them. These will be set up to use a white list, and we will specify the items that we want to go into each of the chests. Again, it takes a little time for the items to make their way down, but eventually the block will show up in the correct chests. At this point, we have a basic sorting system, but there's a flaw. If we put items into the system that we don't have a chest for, eventually they will jam the system and it will stop working. To get around this, we will add an overflow chest that is a fair distance away from the other chests. Items in the item ducts will go to the first chest that will accept them. This means that our cobble and grass will go into the correct chests and everything else can go into our overflow. Again, it takes some time for the items to get to their destination chests. Having the overflow configured this way is great, but it means a lot of extra item ducts, and there is a better way. Here you can see I've shortened the distance between the overflow chest and the chest where we're placing all of the items to be sorted. A section of item duct can be set to adjust its apparent length in the system. Red adds 1,000 to the calculated length, and green will subtract. So now it looks like the overflow chest is over 1,000 blocks away. Again, it takes a little time, but you can see that the items make it to the correct places. There's only one thing left to add. As your system grows, it will be likely that you will add chests for items that once went into your overflow. So let's make a quick way to resort those items. Just make a quick connection between your overflow and your input chests and add a pneumatic servo. This is an optional item, as you could use a lever. Whichever method you use, make sure you turn it off after you've cleared your chest, or items will simply circulate in your system and add to the potential of the system becoming jammed. Now, the only thing left to do is expand your system as needed. Simply connect more chests, more item ducts, and add the servos and configure them as desired.